Okay, this is Mark Lynch. It is Monday, September 22nd, 2025. At 6 p.m. we are at Freedom Hall and also available by Zoom link. Before we begin, if I can ask all who are able to rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take the roll call. This is Mark Lynch. Seth Burdick, present.
John Havel, present.
Ray Perone, present.
Ryan Willett, present. We'll begin the meeting with public comment.
Good evening, I'm Lally Lloyd. I am moderator of the Cotuit Fire District, and in that capacity, I have made appointments to both the Policy Advisory Committee and to the Bylaws Committee. And I am pleased to say that 3 of the 4 appointees are here with us this evening. And with the chairman's permission, they are prepared to introduce themselves in a very few moments. Patty Daly and Jim Canavan will be serving on the Bylaws Committee, and Remus Piscoris and Tom Klein, who is not available to be with us this evening, will be serving on the Policy Advisory Committee. I am also appointing myself to both of those committees ex officio so that I can participate in the conversation. Obviously, I will not have a vote, but that way I can stay in touch with folks. So with your permission, I'd like to invite, we'll go in alphabetical order. So that would be Jim Canavan, come take the seat.
I think most of you folks know me. But yeah, I've been a resident of Cotuit for 44 years and kind of been involved in the politics of town, but not elected official. But I decided that Lally suggested that this would be a good committee to serve on, to look at what's going on and help you folks do your jobs.
Well, we thank you for volunteering.
It's easy enough, I think.
Hi, good evening, Patty Daly, Banfield Drive. So I moved to Cotuit in the early 90s. The first time I came here, I said, that's where I'm gonna live, and I managed to pull that off. So I'm really pleased to be working on the Bylaws Committee. I've been following district meetings for the last couple of years, and I'm very interested in, moving forward public discussion about how we operate and improving our participatory democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Remus Piscoris. I have met one of you. I know the other. Mark, nice to meet you as well. So I'm new to Massachusetts. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and spent the last 40 years in Washington, D.C. The bulk of my career in Washington, D.C., in addition to a number of assignments overseas. Nonetheless, we have kind of a long kind of family connection to the Cape. My wife's summered here with her children, and we continue that with our own family as we were growing our children. We bought a home in Cotuit 5 years ago, and we made this our permanent residence 2 years ago. We were drawn to Cotuit by its charm, right? Its historic charm, its unpretentious nature. I think people would recognize that, and the warm community here. I retired from the World Bank 3 years ago, and where I focused on corporate and project finance in the infrastructure, health, and education spaces. I'm a board member of a small nonprofit, a Lithuanian organization based out of Vermont, and I'm a certified facilitator. What I would look to do is to kind of bring my professional experience in finance and as a nonprofit board member to kind of support you guys in terms of what we're doing, the policies and the actions which will benefit the Cotuit district. The idea would be to bring some thoughtful and constructive input with the hope of helping the commissioners make fiscally responsible and forward-looking decisions. So thanks for the opportunity to serve you, to serve the larger community, and I look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a request. Would you
Yes.
get your this
May I ask?
Absolutely, yes. Sorry.
Hang on.
So-
Precisely what side of town in Cleveland did you come from?
The south side. So
That's neutral.
but I remain a Browns fan. I'm sorry, to my chagrin, I guess, because they haven't done anything in the last how many years, 40, 50. But my name is spelled Remus. Is it Rimas? Last name is Pistorius. P like in Peter. US. Korius. And many people think it's a Greek name. But it's actually Lithuanian, and there's a large Lithuanian American community here in the Cape, and that's kind of one of the other draws for us to kind of make our home here on the Cape.
Well,
So, thanks.
And Larry, can you remind me of the other person who couldn't be here?
Tom Klein,
Tom Klein.
and he looks forward to joining in October. He had a prior commitment. It's my understanding, Commissioner Burdick, that you will be convening the first meeting of the Bylaws Commission, is the committee,
Yeah.
is that correct? And are you able to set that meeting so that so that the date is on the calendar?
Yes.
Sometime before this group meets
Absolutely.
again at the end of October?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
for sure.
And Commissioner Havel, you'll be doing the same for the Policy Advisory
I will be
Commission?
doing the same.
And
yes.
you'll be able to have a date on the calendar before you all regather again at the end of October?
Certainly.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I have another topic, but would you like to see if there's any public comment from anybody else before I pivot to a completely different topic?
Sure. Anybody, Ryan, on the Zoom?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
So this is not as moderator, but I would like to introduce Dan Smith, Dan Philbert Chair. Dan is a newly hired community minister at the Cotuit Federated Church. And the topic that Dan and I have been talking about has to do with the process by which the decisions will be made about what returning the land to nature means with regard to the property where the school now stands. I know you all are very focused on the demolition process and the complexities of that, which we respect, and the process of returning it to nature will follow that. But Dan and I are curious, and I'll invite you to say a little bit more about that, about how we might have an open conversation and explore potential partners to help us as a fire district make good choices about what that looks like. So I was wondering if you have any information for us about a budget specifically that's set aside for that piece of the work. I don't know if there's a line item for that yet, and an approximate timeline.
We are going to talk about that. Just not the next agenda item, but the one after that.
Shortly.
And we'll bring you up to speed with information.
Right.
And we are very focused, I for sure, and I think my co-members on what return to nature means and how that will look.
Great, great.
That's great. Just to fill in a little bit more about why I'm here. I'm half-time at Cotuit Federated Church, helping them to explore some different community engagement projects. I live in Brewster year-round. And one of the groups that I've learned about since I've been on the Cape is called the Native Land Conservancy. I don't know if anybody is familiar with this group, but they partner with different groups like conservation trusts and others, and help to return land to nature and return land to Native community. And so they have a bunch of different ways of doing that, everything from just signing a deed over to creating what's called a cultural respect easement. And we thought it might be an interesting candidate. So just wanted to flag it and see if there was any information about the timeline of these decisions, and just open it up for some future conversation down the road. No rush on this. We haven't yet kind of contacted the Native Land Conservancy, but there is a local piece of property in Cotuit that belongs to the Native Land Conservancy, and other groups on the Cape have worked with them to maybe achieve the same goals that you're.
They were founded in 2012 and are the first native-led land conservation group that's east of the Mississippi River. Commissioner Mark Robinson, who is a water commissioner, as you all know, is listed on their website as one of their advisors. So he's also a resource who can help us learn more about those operations.
And Ramona Peters was the founder, Ramona Peters of the Wampanoag community, even though it's not specifically a Wampanoag group. So just something to put a pin in.
Great. Thank you very much.
Next topic is the meeting minutes approval. And there are two meetings that I hope to get approved, minutes approved tonight. One of them is our August meeting. I would like to, do you have the date on that, Ryan?
It would have been August 25th.
Thank you. I move to approve the August 25th meeting minutes that were distributed earlier.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I believe there's a May 19th, correct, as well. Is that the correct date? I move to approve the meeting minutes for the May 19th, 2025 meeting, which were also distributed earlier.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next topic relates to the carryover of sick days and our accounting of that. And let me kind of briefly summarize that, hopefully very briefly, largely for the purpose of we have some additional information since our last meeting, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So it appears that the water department allows for the unlimited carryover of sick days from year to year. And these sick days accumulate over an employee's entire tenure and are then paid out upon retirement, I believe, or resignation, correct, Ray? Retirement or resignation?
Not for the water department, it's
Just retirement.
just retirement or death.
This has been going on for some time, and the number we originally thought was quite large. That is, the number being the potential liability was around $318,000. It is now our understanding that the right to accumulate sick days was included in a water department employment manual, but that manual also limited the payout to 25% of accumulated sick days. So the good news is the number that we were originally looking at is significantly less than what we thought, though still significant, to the tune of around $60,000. So we're struggling with how to financially react to that, but also we want to make sure we understand the current state of play. That, and Ray's going to correct me if I misspeak, but that employment manual by its terms requires the approval of the Prudential Committee. We're talking about the water department employee manual. Our understanding to date is that that was approved by the water department, but we don't believe it was ever approved by the Prudential Committee. We have Chris Wiseman and Dave Sherbuck here to walk us through some of that. Why don't you guys both come up? Ray, did I state that? Was that a?
Yes,
accurate
you
statement
did.
today?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, David Trubuck, Board of Water Commissioners. Chris Wiseman, Superintendent, Kituitt Water. So it's my understanding that this policy has been in the employment manual, at least according to my records, since 2018, but Chris, correct me, you believe it was first.
Give you a kind of quick history. Back in June of 1989, they were starting to talk about revising the personnel policy at the time. Commissioners at the time were discussing, Paul Wiggins brought it up back then with the commissioners that were there, with Mimi McConnell, and it was the last one. Anyways, they all started this back in '89, and it went all the way before it got voted on to January of '94. So it went on for 5 years trying to advise it. They started out first talking about it, making the revisions, and they started talking to the fire commissioners and the Prudential committee at the time about forming a committee. It never came about. That's back with Craig Burlingame, who was the commissioner. I found in the notes that they had talked to him about it. They all meant to get together, then with the changing of everybody, nobody ever did. Since then, the chief might be able to help me out here. They became unionized. You know when the fire department did?
I do not know.
I want to say it might have been earlier than '87 when I started, because I think they had 2 guys on full-time at that time and might have been unionized then. But they found out you couldn't combine the fire department really, because they have local they have to follow. So it just became, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just to be clear, the water department and fire department are separate from this issue, as I understand it.
Correct.
Meaning the fire department is covered by contract that's negotiated every 3 years, and
Right.
that is specifically laid out in their contract.
So when all that happened and they eliminated the 120-day, they had a 120-day cap originally for sick time, accumulated sick time.
Okay.
They eliminated that, and George Calise brought up at the time, when Jack Thomas started, they gave it to him. He started rewriting it in '94, I think it was, and that's when George Calise came and said, hey, this is how they do it on the farm. Let them go, it keeps everybody here, and they can buy back 25% at the end.
Just so it's clear, who's George Calise?
He was water commissioner here, he's passed since now, but he was a water commissioner here, and so was Jack Thomas at the time.
Okay. And when you say that it was voted on in January of 1994, by it you mean?
The personnel policy that we currently have until we redid it in 2012.
And that personnel policy, was that written out? Was it an employment manual, or was it somehow memorialized, you know?
That was the one back in '94 as revised.
Okay. And when you say it was voted on, who was it voted on, by the voters?
By the water commissioners.
By the water commission?
Correct, and put into policy. Now, Ray had said that you guys have to vote on it also. Where's that said?
In the manual, if I can find it now, there is a provision that states that all compensation plans, which I believe would cover the handbook, since it does involve compensation, have to be approved by the Prudential committee. And if I can find that.
And again, to be clear, with our terms, we're talking about the water department employment manual that is, we believe, currently existent. I hesitate to use the term in effect, because we understand it's been voted on by the water department, not sure if it's been approved by the.
Yeah, you would have to check minutes and your minutes from, I went back to our minutes and found where it was done in our minutes and voted on.
When was the employment manual voted on, in your minutes?
For that one there?
Not you're referring now to the, December 1994 one.
Correct. We changed over to a handbook.
Right.
And it was done first in 2012. We have a 2012, then we updated it in 2018. And then we just updated it in 2023.
2012 version updated in 2018
and 2023.
We think that these were all approved by the water department.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if the original in 94, when this was brought up, was brought to the Prudential Committee back then. I don't know if they had that, or if when it got updated in 2012, if it should have been. I looked through, I didn't see anything like that, and that's why I was wondering, if you find it, let me know.
Yeah, I'll find it. I know, I've seen it.
So section 5 compensation, Mr. Chairman.
What are we looking at right now?
We're
What
looking,
document?
we're looking at the employee handbook of 2018, which is similar to the current one updated in 2023.
What page?
I'm looking at page 43, section 5, under compensation.
43, that sounds familiar.
However, any and all increases recommended by the Board of Water Commissioners shall be contingent upon acceptance and regular appropriation of the required funds by the voters of the Katuitt Fire District at the annual district meeting. That's the only reference I can find to.
Oh, the compensation. It's on
Compensation.
page 40 of that you have, I think, right?
Yep.
Which that never happened, correct? As far as we know, it's not discussed at the annual district meeting.
I don't know.
As far as we know,
As far as we know.
that did not occur.
Not this particular provision, meaning that, of course, every year that they us approve the compensation, correct? In a in the broadest sense.
Exactly. And that's why we're interested in this, because the annual budget doesn't include cumulative sick leave and other things.
Right, so my whole thing about my concern with this initially, when, we may not have had all of the information at the outset.
There.
Thank you. The information at the outset, meaning our last meeting when we initially discussed this. And it was, for me anyway, it was alarming to think that we had an encumbrance of that amount that was unfunded. And that was obviously not so, and that, and so I'm fine with that anyway. Knowing that it's a reduced liability is, a relief in a way, but I don't know, I guess we could look at it a couple of different ways. So if we, every year or in the period of years, we, the Prudential Committee, approve the contract of the fire chief, don't we?
I believe so, yes.
Right. And do we not also approve any negotiations that occur, the union?
I believe we vote to accept the contract that is negotiated.
Right, so I'm trying to draw a parallel between how, when you're gonna have a certain set of compensation, that it would seem logical that if it were an outside, like an encumbrance like this, that it would have to go past us at some point,
You would think so.
legally speaking.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing. I don't have a problem with it necessarily. I just think that we need to do it correctly. So like if this continues and this is the practice, and it has been, and it would be in bad faith for us to say if this were done illegally, not illegally, but again, not in the spirit of the law, the municipal law, then we should honor it, obviously. right?
Right,
But it's just gotta
and
get,
I'll tell you, if I wasn't included in that, this probably wouldn't even be a discussion, and you've never would have been brought up.
Right,
Just because of my years of being here.
38 years.
It'll be 39 next in November, so yeah. So I have, you know, a lot of sick days on the books. I would have had more. I had to take 7 weeks off for shoulder surgery last year, and I got paid while I was doing it. So yeah, I mean, it's worth it. But just kind of a past history. I can only think of 2 to 3 people, maybe 4, that had this payout. And it was a planned retirement, so we put it into the budget the year before. It wasn't like, you know, all of a sudden somebody retired because of illness or something like that. So they went and we budgeted for that. The only other time was a death of an employee. And he had been here for quite a while and had some sick time accumulated. And they ended up giving it to his surviving wife. So, and that came out of what was left. He died in January. He still had 6 months of salary. They took 25% of that out of his 6 months of salary. So it didn't affect anything but the budget at the time.
I mean, I think that, I don't know about the mechanics of it. That's one thing that obviously needs to be correct, and we need to find out what exactly the correct mechanics are.
Agreed,
For-
but mechanics, you mean,
I mean-
how do we fund this?
Yeah, and also does it require our oversight? Is that something that this is an error that, should we have to approve what's in the manual based, if it becomes a financial obligation to us? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I think the clear answer to that is yes. I mean, if it's gonna fall within the annual budget,
Yeah.
it gets approved by the voters, you know, the annual budget, but this is a little bit of a hybrid. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to be in a situation where someone goes to retire, and there's, you know, accumulated sick leave in an amount not covered by the budget. And as Seth says, we've been discussing a little bit, like, how do we go about doing that?
I think, I mean, it could be, I mean, if you calculate this liability every year and then budget it, that's one thing, that's easy enough, right?
Yeah.
If they every year have a running calculation.
I'll
and
leave
they-
that to Ray as to whether that is the appropriate way to do it.
And assume that every year, make the assumption.
You could treat it just like the pension.
Right.
In the Massachusetts accounting, we can't approve for things, but you can fund things.
Right.
And so, what I would recommend is that we fund it based on some amortization of this liability.
Right.
And its increases, so that, God forbid, someone dies on May 29th.
Right.
We're able to accommodate that one. We would accommodate it, but without financial disruption.
Right, and everyone that does not collect on this, that money will remain in that fund. It can be either returned to the general fund and certified free cash.
I mean, you would, if you were amortizing the liability, if someone drops out, the liability drops down, so you may not have to amortize it 1 year.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's from a financial standpoint, from a financial mechanics standpoint, that seems reasonable. For us, it was just shocking to see that we would have an unfunded
Yeah.
liability that we
Ray
couldn't. legally
asks us
have.
every year, come, I'm not sure if it's July or June, but for a commission report.
Right,
And he gets that from us every year. We've been doing it forever, that I can remember, and everything. So, I mean, that's been running, I would think that has something to do with it too, you know, that's where you could see that figure and everything else.
right.
Yeah.
And then as far as the actual policy goes, it seems that it's obviously within the authority of the water commissioners to adopt such a policy and maintain it so long as it's funded appropriately. Is that?
Well, I think that's correct. Again, subject to a policy that results in necessary accruals by the Prudential Committee.
Right.
Meaning outside of the annual budget, unless we figure out some way to
To fund it.
include it in the annual budget.
That's what I would recommend, is that it becomes part of the annual budget. And we're not going to do it in one lump sum, but we're going to build up so that the district is protected from, as I said, that if someone, God forbid, were to, with a substantial sum, were to die on the 28th of May, and we would not have, as we had in the previous case, the unspent budget to cover the separation pay.
So, I mean, granted, is it, you know, I spoke with Mark Boudreau a little bit about this, I assume you did as well, that, you know, right now we have a significant amount of, or not a significant amount, but enough exposure. If that smaller number is manageable within the water department's budget, I imagine, God forbid, if Chris were to walk out here and fall in that sunken drain over there and be gone. Don't forget about the drain.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna bring that up in the comment. There's a big hole in the blast drain down where the parking lot's caving in.
Okay, we gotta circle back to that.
Thank you.
Going astray. We're not in public comment.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I assume that there's adequate funds in the water department's budget to cover that, because as I said now, it may be in, under some legal views, in a liability that we can't pay legally, unless it's in the budget. It comes out of that, right? I mean,
Seth, you have to be careful because we budget both salaries separately from operations.
right,
And so the water department or the fire department might end up with a lot of excess funds in the operation department, but not in the salary department. So you will then violate that article
right.
on salaries.
So that's, I guess that's, yeah, that's what I'm really asking, is that, so does this still leave us with a certain amount of exposure to the, granted less, but what do we do in order to make this, to settle this, or to make it so that we don't?
Let me put a pin in that for a second. I want to go back. Ray, can you find the notation in the water department manual that says
I'm
this
trying,
must
it's
be,
like being at the dentist when the tooth doesn't hurt. I've seen it,
because if that is required, as I think it should be, and it was never done, then we're talking about how do we resolve this from an accounting perspective. We probably need to resolve it from a legal perspective as well. So while we move on to other topics, I'm going to ask Ray to find that. I think it's good practice, as Seth says, you know, the annual budget has salaries and whatnot in it. But if there's going to be some kind of compensation that requires us to financially record it somehow, we probably should read the whole manual to see if there is any such thing in addition to sick days accumulation. So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't this just be an article at the next annual district meeting, or?
not the legal part of it. If it's the manual upon which it's based says it must be approved by the Prudential Committee, it's never been approved by the Prudential Committee. It would have to be approved by the Prudential Committee, presumably.
Correct. Each time we've done this, we've had it reviewed by Attorney Pierce, Michael Pierce in Hyannis, has gone through the reports. I think he also is the attorney he did it for the town of Barnstable when they rewrote theirs a long time ago, and he said everything looked good on it. Originally, we went to Warren Rutherford, who used to be town manager years ago, and he has a business, and he helped us with this, and we started it so that all the legal stuff was in here on parental leave.
I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to read it, I'll give you this. You can bring it home with you.
I'm not suggesting that any of this can't be done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It perhaps has not been, that is
Approved by.
not been approved.
Yeah.
And if it's not been approved, then that's a legal question as to, hey, is this still
even though it's not
and
approved,
like I
it's
said,
been
that was George Calise, Jack Thomas and John Anderson back in '94. And I have it when they voted here, so they would have been coming to you guys, let's see, that was January 18th, 1995, actually, that they took the policy in and put in the section titled unused sick leave. So they would have come to the Prudential Committee if they did, to ask them to a meeting. It would have been after January of 1995. I don't know how your minutes are. Are they online, all of them? I know that I had to go into our computer system to find the ones that we have.
I'm looking at our new assistant treasurer.
He's got another.
In fear and trepidation, it's hard to prove a negative, to say, oh, these were never approved.
Yeah.
Looks like it's gonna be hard to say these were approved.
Gotcha.
All right, I think we're making progress, though. That we are all on board with the idea that right now, on our financial papers, we put in the quote, the total amount accrued. But we need to make sure we have some kind of indication on that document that we're only required to pay out 25%
Yeah.
of these accrued amounts.
Yeah, so
There's
That is-
four of them there. That paper there has the liability part, 25% of each person.
Yeah, but this is a new document that was created, not something that was given to our auditors. So
right.
we need to make sure that next year, the documentation going to the auditors.
I did confirm with the auditors that the 25% is reflected in the GAAP statements, general accepted accounting principles
Okay,
statements, which allow for accruals. So that liability is reflected in our GAAP statements, but not in our state accounting statements.
we should make sure it's in our statement as well.
Well, we can't, number one, except if we fund it, like creating another stabilization fund.
Ray, what's the name of the document that started this whole issue? That it includes that $318,000 number, because that's the documentation I'm referring to. And maybe I'm misspeaking that our auditors.
The previous version.
The same
Yeah, I
information,
don't
just a different-
want another. I want the one. Which
They get that, and they also get
they being who?
the auditors also have the 25% limitation. And that is the basis for their accrual.
It would be nice to have the 25% limitation on this document as well, referring to compensated absence report earned but not used.
That's a footnote. I'm sure the next time you
That's what we sent to you
Yeah.
back, yeah.
put it, we'll just footnote that,
Yes, please.
these are subject to the 25% limitation as spelled out in the handbook. In other words, this is the accumulated. And as the handbook says, you are entitled to 25% of the accumulated.
Correct.
So on the list that created the furor, if we had a footnote that said the above amounts are subject to a 25% limitation as spelled out in the handbook.
Yeah, because we put that, it's like, that's his liability with the little.
Yeah, that's the basis of the liability. That's not the liability. So what I'm suggesting is that it be footnoted or titled basis for the liability, which is calculated at 25% of the below accumulated amounts.
Okay,
So in other words, when you look at whoever that superintendent is,
yep,
if he were to retire tomorrow, he would not get that amount, he would get 25% of that amount.
right, that's what I'm saying, that's what it says here, 25%, we put in a new
Okay.
column that says that.
Oh, you put it in a new column?
Yeah, this is what you had, I think, before, and that's what I was saying with the footnote and everything, just that's what I was showing earlier. Yeah, there's the
That takes
liability
care of it.
column on there, which I think is the same thing you're saying with the footnote column.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry, you guys were saying.
Just some clarifying questions. The water commissioners are meeting Wednesday night. I'd like to report back to them what immediate steps we should
That's what
take
I was just gonna say. You read my mind.
and what long-term steps we should take.
So we're all thinking along the same lines. So the questions that I want, or I think that we need to have answered is, were the manuals approved by the Prudential Committee?
And do they need to be?
Yeah,
And
let
do they
me
need
find
to
it.
be? And if not, how do we, if they were not approved and are required to be, how do we resolve that legal problem? And then the second question is, assuming we resolve that legal problem, how do we financially accrue for these accumulated accrue? Don't hold me to that technical
Yeah,
accounting.
you want to provide for this liability, and the way to do that would be the creation of a specific stabilization fund for that designated purpose. And you would fund that annually as an expense item in the respective department budget annually. And the amount of that funding would be based on some formula to amortize the liability as it increased over time. Or as it changed over time. Yeah.
And so my addition to that, and I don't know what you think about this, Greg, is that from today until June 30th, 2026, we have unfunded liabilities. And that I think that, I don't know what the mechanism for that would be necessarily, but that the water commissioners need to fund it. Whether it's, you cut it out of whatever part of your budget, but so that it is, does that really work though? Because my whole thing last time was, say for instance, something happens to Chris, and we were operating under the idea that we're $200,000, and then we're supposed to pay that money and we legally can't do it. Like we just wouldn't be allowed to do it because we wouldn't have been able to pay it.
You would
And we
be,
still won't,
you would be able to pay it because it's a legal obligation.
but it would create a whole,
You
like,
may have to have, someone may have to go to court to get a court order to do it,
but that's
you
what I'm
have to
trying to
pay
say.
legally.
That's why it's important, I think. I don't know how you would legally today still, because as from today until June 30th, 2026, which is the turn of our fiscal year, when everything starts again, that if that liability becomes a reality, what's the mechanism through which it is paid?
Special district meeting.
Especially.
Really, that's what I'm saying. So I don't like the sound of that,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
And the person being paid is not like the sound of that.
Yeah, everybody's like, what do you mean
Because,
50,000?
You know,
No way.
You know, that they could, the voters could say no.
And that was what was that was even more, I thought, that just underlined the, you know, that this is something that needs to get done.
I'll just ask, because I have a question, and I know you're gonna try to figure out how to do this, but even if we have that, do you still want us to include, like, if we know, you know, if I leave in 5 years or something like that, do I still put that in the budget for when I'm gone? Like, this is gonna be a buyout that we'll put into the budget at the time and ask for.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we're gonna dip into. This is just there for I keep saying liability, but just as a fund in case something happens, really, in the case of death.
Yeah, I mean, it can be
Or a sudden retirement.
a stabilization fund can ultimately be for any number of purposes,
Yeah.
really. I mean, it
And
wouldn't be
I think we need to talk about that, leaving the Prudential Committee. Let's start with has this been properly
Okay,
legally instituted? And
I
if not, how
apologize.
do we fix that?
for not being able to find it.
Well, we're gonna go on to other topics here in a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna ask you to see if you can dig through and find it, just so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
One question I have, Seth, you brought up last month, you know, kind of, you just mentioned it. What entities or what people have the ability to accrue debt on behalf of the Committe Fire District? And if I'm understanding this correctly, the only problem here, or where it stemmed from, is that it was not approved by the Prudential Committee at that point, and then probably the stabilization would have happened, and then it would have been accounted for correctly. Is that right?
Well, it would have had to go to, it would have had to have been at a district meeting.
Yes,
That could be funded.
yes, yeah.
So if it hasn't been specifically approved as a warrant article for the, to expend funds, then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, we're not saying that they didn't have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
It's just.
I will say, the 25% limitation makes a huge difference, of course,
Oh, of
but
course.
this is a nice benefit, because you're accruing, from when you started and a sick day from what would it be?
1987. I started,
1987,
yeah.
and you're being paid out at your current salary.
Correct.
So
Correct,
it's a very nice benefit, that's been kind of discarded by the corporate world sometime ago.
Right.
But again, water department, if approved.
And I
has the right
believe
to
the
do it.
fire department does have it too, but it locks out at, I think it's 2,080 hours, I think it is, so they get a year's salary. That's where their limit is.
For sick time?
Uh,
sick
and
time.
I
It's
do-
less.
I do not
Yeah,
believe
far
that's
less.
the case. I believe it's significantly less than that.
Didn't this issue arise when the assistant treasurer retired?
I wouldn't say it arose, it was identified.
Identified. And what was that rate paid at?
We paid out the assistant treasurer 2 weeks.
Which is the same as the fire department.
paid sick
Effectively
leave.
the same,
Sorry,
effectively,
Ray?
I think it's effectively the same, right, it's slightly over a 25% of accumulated sick time. The 25% that we agreed upon was slightly over the 25% of her accumulated sick days, if not by a significant amount.
I just talked to one of the firefighters over there. He told me it's a year's, comes out to a year's hours. 2,080 hours is 52 weeks, 52 weeks, 5 days a week.
I don't know. Wouldn't be the first time we don't have our story straight.
And I think it's right on the website. That contract is on the website. Yeah, we can look it up again. I can look it up tomorrow. It's on there.
This is just one of those things that came about because of the confluence of events that are all highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Which is something that sticks
Yeah,
around.
and
for
it was
38 years.
misunderstood too, that if someone resigned, that they get it. If they resign, they do not get it.
Yeah.
If somebody goes to another job, they do not get it. This gets turned back in.
Yeah.
The option's gone. It's only on retirement and death to an estate of.
But it seems going forward that we should be putting forward a warrant article year in and year out.
That's what
funding.
seems likely to me. I mean, or just as a part of your budget.
Seems most likely, we haven't decided for sure that that's the right way to do it, but it seems like that's the way.
If it's a stabilization fund to fund it that way, if it's a line item in your budget that reflects a certain amount, then it can appear in the larger budget that you submit to the.
Might be,
the
yeah,
fire
it might be
district.
something. I don't know with the stabilization fund, if it takes a lot to start something like that or anything.
No, it's very easy to start.
So it might be something that, and we just put the money in and then every year add a year's worth of.
Right.
Anybody who has tenure, also, they have to have at least 10 years in the retirement system to retire, so they have to have at least 10 years at the water department to be able to
Right.
take advantage of this situation. Which,
Well, it all sounds good to me. As the body with the fiduciary responsibility, we have, we're behooved to try and make some kind of sense of it. and
understand.
Figure out what was the best way to handle it.
One last mechanics issue, I think I will probably ask Ryan to communicate with the Jen to hopefully get to the bottom of the question, were these manuals approved by the Prudential Committee?
Okay.
What records you have, what records we have, when the appropriate dates might be, so we can focus our looking.
Okay.
And then we'll put this back on the agenda for next month, and hopefully we'll have some additional clarity.
Should be fun.
Been a ball so far, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any comments on this particular topic? Next agenda item is the Katuitt School Building demolition status. Some of you may have seen on the Katuitt Fire District website, we put out a request for services for a project manager. Tomorrow is the optional inspection of the property for those interested in bidding. We have at least one entity that is coming for the inspection, although it is not required. The responses to that request for services are due now October 3rd. And we will probably have to have a special meeting of the Prudential Committee to, if not physically review them, then to discuss them. The idea being that we will pick the top 2 or 3 to interview. We'll have to set up interviews and hopefully pick a project manager, which is required by Massachusetts law. The next step would be to hire an attorney, an architect, to draft technical specifications for the demolition and return to nature part of it. And then those, that will be part of the request for proposal. I believe that's the correct term, that will go out for bid to interested parties who are interested in demolishing the property and returning it to nature. Any questions from the committee on that? Okay.
Well, I have one, not question, comment, I guess.
Okay.
If that, unless you were gonna continue on that in that same line with that same agenda item.
No.
Other information.
No.
I was gonna say, so we have more or less resigned ourselves to the notion that we will not begin demolition until the spring.
I think, well, 2 thoughts. One is that that's probably how long it's gonna take.
Right.
And 2 is that, for the replanting purposes, we either wanna do it in early spring or late fall.
Yeah.
So we're aiming for early spring. If we don't get there, we'll have to discuss whether we just wanna put it off until the fall.
So, and, yeah, I mean, so I guess what was my point that I was gonna make? I was simply gonna say, if we can have, I, for one, will be willing to meet more frequently in order to drive this process along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and if you guys are willing to do it, I'm happy to schedule them.
Yeah, because municipal processes move slowly enough, and so if we're meeting once a month,
We're
it's
not
just gonna
done.
drag it way the heck out there.
No,
And I just think that it, the sooner we get this ball rolling and get it all squared away, the happier I'll
yeah,
be.
well,
It's already been
as I
4
said, my
years.
lead is we're probably gonna have to schedule a special meeting to review these.
Right.
If not all together, then at least we need to discuss them. And then again, have interviews. So, all right, I will prevail upon your gentleman's time. The next topic is one that I put on the agenda, which is the Katuitt School Property Conservation Easement. I just wanted to raise this topic and get the views of my fellow committee members. Right now, there is a conservation easement from the town of Barnstable that limits what they can do with their retained portion of the property. I think it makes sense for us, for future generations to likewise limit the use of our retained portion of the property once the building is demolished and returned to nature. We wouldn't want someone 5 or 10 years from now saying, hey, you know what, that'd be a great place for a parking lot. So I was just wondering what, this would be a bit of a process, but I was wondering what my fellow committee members thought of that idea.
I'm not necessarily against it. Is that something that has to go to a district meeting? I feel like we approve conservation restriction.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so, but if we decide it's a good idea, we want to get council weigh in on whether we had to.
I know that we've signed conservation restrictions, meaning like the one that occurred with this property initially.
Right.
And I don't believe that they went to a district meeting, but it gets murky.
Well, do we think that's an idea that we would like to pursue?
I'm a little bit torn on it. Just so I know, conservation easement would be for a set amount of time, an indefinite amount of time, or we decide?
A conservation restriction, I have in mind, kind of the mirror image of the one that the town signed, and that is in perpetuity. Forever.
I mean, that makes me a little bit nervous committing to something like that, but certainly worth exploring. I don't think the intention is to build anything on the property. I think it makes sense to safeguard it somehow from future development, but
Well, there's a lot of different ways to write a conservation restriction, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be all one. It doesn't have to be like a blanket restriction on everything that will ever be there forever.
sure, but the definition that we come up with now would be there for perpetuity.
Yes.
I mean, something like that, I don't know. As I said, I don't know, I believe that does anybody out there know whether it's us that approves a conservation restriction or it's a special district meeting, or a district meeting, an article item, or an agenda item, warrant article, that's the word I'm looking for.
I don't know, but I think if we decide this is something we want to investigate, probably Mark Boudreau, our attorney, is the guy to answer that.
Boudreau would be the one to answer. My own suspicion is that that would be an annual district meeting.
Well, it would be a fine thing to couple into the return to nature aspect of our process, obviously, because if we're gonna have, and is that when we would talk about what previous speakers mentioned about the concept of return to nature?
Actually, it probably is.
Is that another thing?
Yeah, well, it could fall under either this agenda item or the last one, probably this one. Just so where we stand there, the contract that is eventually going to be entered into, as we contemplate it, will be a soup to nuts. There will be a contractor responsible for the entire project, which means from the beginning of the demolition to a site that has been returned to nature. And one of the things that the architecture firm that we hope to hire will do, and they all, well, I don't know whether we're going to hire Icon, but Icon put together a rather detailed plan for quote, return to nature, close quote, but down to like the number of trees, the size of trees, the size of the meadow, and doing a little investigation. There are different meadow mixes that can be used. And there is expertise, with the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, Barnstable Land Trust, et cetera. But presumably, we will want our architect to spell out exactly what we mean when we say return to nature. The size of the meadow, the type of trees, and as I say, the Icon architecture feasibility study demolition option included a fair amount of information in that regard. It will be more robust. And as we've talked at prior meetings, it probably will involve some input from the three of us as to exactly what that means in terms of possible fencing, et cetera, pathways.
So,
if any.
yeah, my thought is, this property belongs to the fire district and should be the people of the fire district to determine kind of what that aspect of it means. Also with the easement, conservation easement, and kind of what we've been talking about, what does return to nature mean? I mean, I think bringing it up is correct, and I think we can kind of manage that process, but at the same time, I think what's missing is community input.
I think, I agree with you on that. I think the coupling the two is not a good idea. From a standpoint, like a time constraint standpoint, a speed of execution standpoint, that the building should go. And then you could have the process for the decision to what to do with the land. Exactly what to do with it. We can have it be flat and grass, and then we can then go and do something else. Because if we did a couple of public outreach process into the contract aspect for the demolition, that's not gonna give us any meaningful amount of time, in my opinion, do you see what I'm saying? That's gonna, my whole concern, as I stated 5 minutes ago, was that I wanna get rolling on the demolition and get that done with. If we tie a whole nother public input process into a process that doesn't have to be coupled to the demolition, but is a byproduct of the demolition, we could take our time with that end of it and have a more robust process and then be rid of the building.
But isn't it already tied into it based on the
Not
return to nature
necessarily,
wording?
because,
Well,
not
the
necessarily,
proposal,
because-
here's the thing, Seth, you can't have a big hole in the ground with nothing there.
Right.
Forget hole, I said hole in
That's-
the
I
ground.
understand
It's-
that.
It's gonna be filled with soil or loam or whatever.
But we
But
budgeted
it
in
needs to
over-
be immediately replanted, whatever, or the neighbors are gonna be rightfully screaming that they're in the middle of a dust bowl.
Right, and I can understand that. So we had budgeted in $180,000 worth of landscape work.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah.
I think it was.
And so we, as a
470.
committee, said that we wanted to not necessarily pursue the aggressive return to nature, which was in fact a walking track and a bunch of trees and this and that.
Right,
So we can spend an adequate amount of money to make safe the area. And then, once that article closes and is complete, that money can be redeployed into a new process to do, because you see what if you're gonna do public outreach, if we're gonna let the community decide or have input on what exactly is gonna be there, we know we're gonna have a broad spectrum of opinions. And are they gonna be more intensive, less intensive, to what degree?
I
Do you see what I'm
have
saying?
no interest in going through this entire process again.
Right.
Meaning, we probably would need a project manager, we'd need to hire, the idea that we would hire maybe an architecture or a landscape architecture consultant and then put that out for bids. I think that's a terrible idea. You know, we can drag this out indefinitely if we want to. I'm all in favor of community input, but it probably needs to be at a meeting like this, at one of our meetings where we have a proposal. I don't want, frankly, people fly specking which, variety of oak tree should be in here. I mean, that's why we're gonna hire, and I really feel strongly that whoever we give this contract to, we're gonna say, you are responsible for this entire thing until the grass is grown, and the trees are blooming, and the birds are singing. I think that demolishing it and then saying, now let's start another process to get community input, which again, I'm fine with, but like, if we're gonna do community input, let's go. Like, now's the time. Don't do this again.
I can understand that. It's reasonable. I mean, return to nature. I mean, it has boundaries as a term, but it's not.
Yeah, it could be as simple as just putting down loam and letting nature take its course, but that'd take too long. I'm not in favor of that, but you look around, you see what the other varieties of trees are. I'm sure that they're all naturally occurring. That is, they're all native trees. And you have a landscape architect say, this is where this needs to go. This is where the meadow should be. This is what the meadow mix should be. And this is the presumably temporary watering system we need to ensure that it gets a good start. Can I jump on Mr. Havel now for the websites?
Sorry, just one last thing on that. I wonder, I agree with you, Mark. I think it should be, once we start it, just see it all the way through. I'm just wondering about timing in that, you're right, it doesn't really make sense for open discussion about which trees go where. But I'm like, if we do, the RFPs and we find someone we like and we do the interviews, is there the possibility, there would be a window where the building is still being demolished and nothing is growing or no work is being done on the returning to nature? Could we expect them to provide multiple options, at which point we kind of say, hey, everyone, let's decide on these? Or is it just, we're gonna get one thing and then that's it?
I think we're gonna get one thing and it's not, that's it. We're gonna get one thing and we're gonna say, villagers, come see what the one thing is.
Okay,
And then, you know, if you're gonna.
so it'd be a similar process to the fire station, in that a plan is presented.
The plan is presented
And
and
then at that
speak
point-
now or
Yeah.
forever hold your peace, you know, as we always say, if you get 20 Katushans together, you get 25 opinions. So, I do think that here's the plan. What do you think? And we advertise it well and get the input and do it. You know, I'm also very concerned about our numbers. You know, like, I'm sure there was a Cadillac version of Return to Nature, but,
I think that's what was proposed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it was a nice car.
Very, very
Maybe nicer than needed.
fair.
All right. Any other thoughts on this topic?
I just move along.
Okay, keep on board with that. I see Mr. Havel nodding his head yes too.
I just believe at some point, it should not be us deciding on what happens and we facilitate it, but somehow, and I'm happy to lead that charge, somehow there needs to be a series of public, you know, I guess, presentation and then solicit feedback, present that to the landscape.
Sounds like you just volunteered to run some meetings,
I will
John.
volunteer for that. Yes, I'm happy to.
Okay, can we jump to website status?
Yes, this will be a little bit quick and I don't think, I hope this won't be a habit, but I did not make a whole lot of progress on the website between back to school and weddings and all sorts of stuff. So I did meet with Jen Nash from the water department, which we went through their needs and their wants, and I've incorporated most, if not all of the feedback, but beyond that, I wasn't able to put a whole lot of time.
Okay, we're just gonna keep putting it on the agenda and torturing you.
I will commit that it will be done by the end of the year. I hope it'll be done sooner.
John, you know, I'm being facetious and we appreciate it.
Okay, I feel bad.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure you're doing a great job, but I still stand by, and not to say that you're not a professional, but I think we should pay somebody to do it. I've been saying it for years now. Not that you're not capable, of course, but what I mean to say is that then we won't have to fuss with it. You know what I mean? I do. We need all but two in this meeting, so. You have the last one, John.
I don't disagree with that. I will say, again, once it is set up, I think this last website lasted 7 years, 8 years or so.
You won't have to do it again for a while.
Once it's set up, it should be fairly minimal to maintain and manage. So,
All right, and we'll look to your advice on that, but again, all joking aside, thank you. We appreciate this. And I will just keep putting it on the agenda.
please do.
Next item is the treasurer's report.
Thank you. The 2 months ended August 31st, turned out to be rather favorable for the district. Overall revenue is 24% of the budget, where the August target is 17%. Expenditures, while being 25%, also include substantial amounts of one-time payments for retirement contribution for employees and risk insurance. If you were to just take those out, we would be on or near the 17% expenditure level. Looking at the individual revenue items, taxes were running at about 25% overall. Is that right? 23% overall, with the biggest increase coming from the liens and penalty and interest. Also, I would say that we recorded the refund, so-called refund of prior year tax receipts from the town. So we are net of that at 23%. Water department totaled 26%. And I know we've had a discussion at the last meeting about the dichotomy of the amount of water pumped and the revenue. And I was reminded that there is a time phase. So for example, this building, the revenue that we're looking at here is not from the water pumped in July and August, but from the water pumped from January to June. And so when we go back and look at time phasing and the pump to the revenue, there's a bit of a time phase calculation that we will have to go through. And I will do that once we get the year end in shape. The ambulance revenue was 23%, and we had a very strong performance of grants, both FEMA and state. The grant revenue will be transferred to the special revenue fund with a corresponding and equal amount of expense. So we won't get credit for the revenue going forward, but it will relieve of the expenditures and have the benefit that way in the general fund. And that is the appropriate accounting for grants under the Massachusetts system. In the other category of revenue, we're over budget again, and that's interest. Interest won't be as strong last year as it will be this year. We just saw the Fed take its action, dropping the interest rates. Although bond prices, unfortunately, have held up, we haven't seen that reduction flow into the bond prices, which will become a negative when we start talking about fire department financing and district financing for any debt that we incur for the demolition or the fire station creation. On the expenditure side, everything is really under budget or on budget if it was an annual payment. Nothing really of any note. In 2 months, it's hard to tell which direction the wind is blowing for the fiscal year with only 2 months of it in. Second page, we talk about the various funds. Obviously, we're in a very strong cash position. The operating account has not been fully reconciled, and that is part of the year-end problem where I'm running behind of the schedule that I've set out. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up that schedule by the end of this month, or shortly in the first few weeks of October. So far, that schedule is dictated by the town estimate of when they would want to do the tax recap or tax classification meeting. They indicated early October. I haven't heard anything either contrary or reinforcing that. Looking at the individual funds, OPED, we had some strong earnings in the first couple of months. We're now at 2.7, almost 2.7 and a half, up from 2.7 in 2 months. Stabilization has not had all of the contributions. Those will be done in the latter part of this month and the early part of next month, where we'll be moving money into both stabilization and water department stabilization. The capital fund is in a strong position. The bond that we floated in June brought in a 1.2 million, which was a net increase of approximately 400,000, which will fund us for all activities related to the fire station through November. We're still working on the USDA funding for that station, but I'm becoming more and more convinced that that will not happen. We're 2 weeks away from the government year end. They can't tell me what money is available until after that. And that puts it in a very tight crunch to get to the necessary funding to sustain the fire station construction schedule, which requires funding in late November, early December. Also, my latest communication with them indicated that they didn't know what interest rate would be available, let alone how much funds would be available. So I am going to pursue the market ban as well as the USDA. But again, I'm becoming more discouraged about USDA funding. Nothing else to report, either from an operational or a funding standpoint, unless you have any questions.
I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, man. Carry on.
Ray, if you could, the next agenda item is former assistant treasurer computer issue. This was the issue regarding Lisa Haven's personal computer, which she had used with our permission for district business, and she was interested in getting all of the district business off her personal computer. And we had agreed to offer her $700 towards the purchase of a new computer. And I understand that she has rejected that offer.
Yeah, she said that she'll take responsibility for clearing this out. It's not so much files on her computer as access to the cloud with our files in the cloud that she has to disengage from. And she said that she would do that with special care to make sure that all the personal identification information is not exposed.
What kind of personal identification information would be?
Social security number, birth dates, it's all up in the cloud. All the payroll information is in the cloud.
Is this presenting some kind of security risk for us?
The same that would exist for Bank of America, US Airlines.
No, I just mean specifically with respect to Lisa's computer.
If she does it professionally, no. If she does it, with care, no. And I asked her to stay in touch, make sure that,
Do you mind if I ask which cloud we're talking about? Is it I assume it's software related to document storage? Is it Dropbox or something separate?
you're getting beyond my technical
Right.
expertise.
Shared. SharePoint,
SharePoint, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You have access to this as an administrator potentially?
Yeah.
That I'm not sure of.
but we have the IT consultants, secure networks.
Yeah.
I believe that's something that should be done remotely. And it's just as simple as, or I would assume it's as simple as looking up who has access to them, and we're making sure that her access is removed.
So, yeah, we can do that. I believe we've done that with most of the systems already.
Yeah.
I've removed her from the payroll. I removed her from the ledger. And those are the two key items that would be in the cloud for us, so.
Sure.
Right, if we can
I'll have Secure Networks, make sure that I've done that properly.
And that would be tied into her Office 365 subscription that should be wound down anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, well, I've alerted Secure Networks that she's no longer an employee and that, Ryan has taken her place. But I'll reconfirm with them that has happened.
And if between the two of you, you could just
And then
confirm.
community
with Secure
report back.
Networks that,
Sure.
we have no security issue relating to Lisa's old computer.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. That is, the end of the agenda items. We will take public comment if anyone has any.
Hi, thank you, Patty Daly. Let's see, regarding the sick time carryover, and I want to say the water commissioner I consider a friend, and so this is in no way personal. I've worked my entire career in public service, municipal government, county government, state government, and in no governmental service have I ever been allowed to carry over an hour of sick time. It's use it or lose it. So going forward, I'm not talking about looking backwards, but going forward, I'd hope that that could be a discussion that could be had. Regarding the conservation easement, they basically are forever, generally speaking. You have to go to the State House to undo them. I guess I just, in the interest of maintaining flexibility for district ownership of the property, when you request Attorney Boudreaux's assistance, that you ask not just about, you know, straight up conservation restriction, but what other types of maybe less permanent or more flexible restrictions might be put on the property. And let's see. Oh, just with regard to public input, I know Mark, the Chairman Lynch said that the demo would happen either in the spring or in the fall. If it were in the fall, then there would be plenty of time to have some public input around what that looks like and what people want to see out there. And I understand it's a little challenging, but you can get professionals to like facilitate those conversations so that you get, you know, you can build consensus and get an outcome that most people are going to be happy with. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I don't know if this is the appropriate way of doing this, but I'll provide my input. On the issue of the water companies that accrue liability, in terms of structure, the way I would think about it, I think you need to first decide, do you want to recognize the validity of the de facto accrued liability or not? Right? That hasn't come clear in terms of what is the position of the Prudential Committee. Then you've got to clarify the existing policy. Has it been approved or has it not been approved? And make a decision in respect of that. Then you should think about, okay, well, if you want to change the policy, do we change the policy, right? And then what's the process for approving any the funding of any financial obligation arising from the previous three decision points? Right, that's kind of how I would look at it from just thinking about how to structure this. On the computer, that's that should be of concern to us, to be perfectly honest. Invariably people download documents onto their computer when they're working on their personal computer for work purposes. And so it would be good to just confirm if there has been any downloads and whether they've been removed appropriately, right? And not just rely on somebody's representation.
Thank you.
Any more public comments in the audience? I understand there's someone in Zoom who would like to comment. Chris?
Hi, it's Chris Ravello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't planning to speak, but I just wanted to say that in terms of the sick time rollover, I'm a retired teacher and I did have the benefit of a sick time rollover. So it does happen in other municipalities and stuff. And it is limited with how much. And I do agree with the idea of having that liability covered. That was a huge issue with us at a state level. And also regarding that, a lot of times because everyone knows everyone, it gets a little informal. And personally, I thought the water department employee was very respectful, but you need to remember that it could apply to anyone, anytime, and speak more in generalities than versus it's just kind of a more neutral way of addressing the problem versus saying someone's name could, anyone could take last minute retirement for whatever reason or whatever. And I am still concerned about the security of the computer because I brought that up last month and I do have the concerns that were expressed previously. Thanks.
Anyone else on Zoom with a comment?
Please. Just bring your attention, you want to jump out. There's a hole in the parking lot over in the back corner around a drain. And I don't know who is responsible for this parking lot. I know it's a shared parking lot.
Good point. Can you do me a favor? Can you show Ryan where that is?
Yep.
And we're gonna deputize Ryan to figure out. Thank you. Get a solution. That's the nice way.
Quickly, just to let you know too, that we have started receiving checks from the PFAS settlement. We have received the second one, and Ray put it aside to come to you to open up a dedicated fund. It's up to about 164 right now. So, and we're still expecting for the next 10 years, at least a yearly check to come in from some, and a one-time check before the end of the year, possibly beginning of next year, and then another lawsuit out there. So that's only part of like 15 that are out there we're settling.
Chris, thank you for reminding me. I want to bring a motion to the Prudential Committee to create a stabilization fund for the PFAS funds as they come in. We can put it in the special revenue and just categorize it as special revenue receipts.
You want to do that right now? That is, or
That would be perfect. Move that the district create a special revenue fund to accumulate the PFAS receipts.
Should it be under our
And
agenda?
Chris, what is the intent to use these funds for?
Ray, let me interrupt. Seth just raised the issue that I am too. We probably should put this as an agenda item.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were the one who sent me the thing from, Tony Healy on it. Originally, when we got the first check about opening up different
Yeah.
accounts, you could send it to it, so I'll look for that again.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And we'll, if you could come to the next meeting too, if we can prevail upon you.
All right.
And it just, I think that probably makes sense. I want to make sure that's not anything we can't undo if we decide we need a little more flexibility, but it sounds like that's the proper way to do it to me, but let's discuss.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Any other items?
I'm sorry, I mean, it sounds like everyone's kind of bringing up, a lot of people are bringing up the security issue. I'm wondering though what the options are at this point then, in terms of the computer. Other than physically having the computer and checking the contents of the computer. Because at any point, once her personal computer was used for business, any number of files could have been downloaded, and there's no way for any of us to really know. I'm sorry to bring this up, but I'm just,
Well, we have to divide the computer from her essentially. That would
And
go.
it was used I believe, for a substantial portion of the COVID period. And also, when we ordered the replacement computer, the replacement for the district computer, it was inoperable and it had to be sent back, and she used her computer with our knowledge in that period.
So our new practice is to never allow this to happen again. Ryan has a dedicated computer, so the
And we
question is
probably
how
ought
do we undo this problem?
And we
Lisa.
probably ought to have a standby computer.
I'm
So
sorry.
we ought to have a standby laptop. For example, if Ryan's computer were to go out 2 weeks from today, how are people going to get paid? Sorry, you can't use your personal computer to pay people. That's what we were faced with. You can't pay bills. So to really get around it, you would have to have a standby laptop sitting.
I think we really need to get around it. I
And
don't
that's-
want to be here,
And that's what we
20 years
need to
from now
do.
after a long career. If Ryan leaves us and we've got the same problem again.
And then we'll have to get it, we'll have to run it, and then put it on the shelf, so we don't have the problem we had with the one replacement that we tried. In other words, you're gonna have to prove it's a workable computer.
Yes.
And
Do
with that
we need to
being,
do any kind of motion to make that happen, or do you have the funds
well,
available
wait a
to make
minute,
that happen?
we're getting into the license. I've got to discuss with Secure Network. Each of our computers are licensed. This is a district computer, that's a district computer, and these are licensed with Secure Networks. That was one reason why Secure Networks didn't want to touch hers, because it wasn't licensed. So we'll have to have a third license.
How much does it cost? Per year? Per month? Whatever. Well, we can talk about it. at our
I'd have
next
to go look.
meeting. But as far as Lisa's computer goes, I think the cat's out of the bag. It's what are we gonna do about it? We can't demand the computer back. It wasn't ours to begin with. We offered money for it. She said no. They can remotely do what they can, but we can't.
Secure Networks won't touch it.
Is it a problem with the amount, or she just doesn't want to give up her personal computer because she has personal files on it? Because it sounds like,
That's what I believe, reading between the lines, I think there's stuff on there that she does not want people to see. Although she was willing to let Secure Networks come in and work on it.
Initially,
No, I mean, she still
Recently.
would, but
okay,
Secure Networks won't work on it.
I see.
Because it was never a licensed computer. So they don't feel like they're responsible for it.
Understood.
I don't usually do this, but is there a public comment on this topic?
surely there is somebody who makes a business out of solving this kind of problem that we could find and pay them to clean up her computer, or give her the choice between that and buying an exact duplicate of the one that she already has and have someone help her transfer her personal files. I mean, this is the risk to the district feels to me to be substantial.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, yeah.
I'm wondering if we're really overstating the risk. There is a risk. I'm wondering if we're overstating it.
I would just say it's the risk of any employee with any access to any information, downloading a file and doing anything with it, at which point, none of us here would know, but that would be the same risk that these two, yeah, exactly, currently.
Isn't the greatest risk the access to the cloud, and we can't restrict it from that?
We can, yeah. And yes, that would be the first thing to do if it already hasn't been done. Beyond that, I don't think there's much we can do in terms of, what happened. I mean, I also don't want to make it seem that we're like anyone's accusing anything. It's just, it's a potential risk, but
Yeah,
like,
I think I think I should voice our concern so that she executes it with care
Well, see,
and responsibility.
yeah, see what you can do. It's a private individual with their own private possession that is under no obligation to cooperate with us in any fashion.
But she is cooperating.
No, but you do see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
see
no.
what you can do, I think. And then if you can do something, we can do something. If we can't, then that's that. We just move on.
And I
mean,
will rely on Ryan and Ray to ensure that any rights that can be computer access rights that can be taken away from her have been
We will confirm that.
removed. Okay. And then I agree with John. It is what it is. And if we can work on getting a backup computer, let's find out about that.
Yeah, I want to talk to Secure Networks about, this isn't a computer, this isn't a third user. This is a backup, because of the situation we find ourselves in.
Couldn't we call them and say, hey, our Ryan's computer went down, we need your services starting effective immediately, we'll pay you? I mean.
Yeah, I'm
when they
sure
say-
they'll allow you to have
What are they
another
gonna do?
license.
What?
I'm not sure that's, I'd have to think it through. I don't think that's really workable. Because in essence, that did happen. We got a computer and it didn't work. We said, why can't you make this work?
Oh, we wouldn't be interested in making the old one work. We'd be interested in, hey, we just bought a brand new computer, as far as you know, and we want to have your services beginning right now. Well, let's discuss this at our next meeting, or perhaps Ray and I can.
Let me talk with them and find out. I'm sure that we're not the only one who's faced this issue.
You know what, John, if I can prevail upon you, you are so much more tech savvy than I am. If Ray can just call you and walk through
Yeah.
this, that would be very helpful.
of course.
Thank you. Barring any more public comment from Zoom or otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now adjourned.